All right, good to go.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. How are you all tonight? It's nice to see you. My name is Joel Whitney. I curate arts and culture events for the Brooklyn Public Library's BPL Presents team. It's a pleasure to welcome you tonight to this new series celebrating past winners and nominees of the Brooklyn Public Library's Literary Prize as they read and discuss their work. This time, it's the 2021 nonfiction winner, Craig Taylor. We're excited to welcome Craig in a moment. I will do just that, but as I welcome you into this conversation, which will last about an hour, depending on how much you all have to say at the end, I just wanted to let you know a few ways for those of you who are new to BPL Presents, how you can follow us. Our handle, as I've been saying, is BPL Presents on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And that is also the suffix we use on our website, bklynlibrary.org/BPL Presents. Now, this is a prize that is funded through our friends at the Peck Stack Pool. And we're so grateful for this chance to talk about the books in a little bit more detail. In this case, months out from the fall when Craig won. Coming up next, we're going to talk with a few others, and I'll drop those in the chat as well. But I wanted to make sure you knew what else was coming up. We're also in the middle, towards the end of an Indigenous Poets series, poets who are Indigenous and who are writing at the top of their game alongside emerging Indigenous poets. And we'll drop some information in the chat about that as well. Now, this conversation is going to start in a moment, and Craig's going to talk with these really extraordinary characters in his book, and he'll welcome them himself. He knows them much better than I do, but I feel like by the end of this program, we're all going to know these truly unique voices of New Yorkers. So why don't I get ready to turn this over to Craig? Before I do that, I just want to give you a snippet of what we're talking about. Author Craig Taylor, winner of the 2021 Brooklyn Public Library Literary Prize for Nonfiction, presents some of the fascinating voices from this portrait of New York. Voices who come to BPL to discuss the workings of the greatest city on earth. What sort of energy does New York exude? How can a person thrive here? What's it like to be homeless on its streets? With Taylor will be Sandra Shea, energy healer and real estate space clearer, Elliot Carter, can recycler, Dan Bauso, lawyer and raconteur. If I'm saying your name wrong, Dan, please let me know. Gladys DeJesus Mitchell, retired 9/11 dispatcher. And of course, they'll be talking with Craig, who is the author of the best-selling Londoners. His other books, Return to Aikenfield and 1 Million Tiny Plays About Britain, have both been adapted for the stage. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Guardian, The Globe and Mail, and Granta. And so without any further ado, Greg, please unmute yourself and be welcome.
Thanks so much, Joel. Thank you very much. It's great to look out on the screen and see all of your smiling faces. Welcome. This is going to be a fun hour. I've been looking forward to this for ages. I've done some book events for this book, but I have yet to introduce and speak with some of the wonderful interviewees in the book. The evening is entitled How New York Works. And luckily, I don't have to tell you. I don't have to give you an answer. I don't know the answer. This place still stymies my knowledge of it. But with me are some New Yorkers who can give us an idea of how New York City works. And I'm very lucky to be able to talk with them tonight. This was really a dream project for me. I came here to New York at the beginning of 2014 with a job. The job was to go out and speak to as many people as possible and to listen to their stories. And so I knew none of these people beforehand. I interviewed about 180 New Yorkers over the course of the years that I was working on the book. 400 hours of tape, I think it went to. But over the course of that time, I was introduced to some of the best New Yorkers in the city. I stand by that. And so we've been able to collect a few of them here tonight. Sandra, Gladys, Elliot, and Dan will be answering some of my questions, expanding on some of the pieces in the book. If you've read the book, you might have already envisioned these people. You might have already imagined what they're like. And one of the great things about nonfiction, as opposed to fiction, is here they are. They live and breathe. They live on. And I'm just very lucky. The other night we had a party for the book, and a bunch of people from the book were able to come to it. And so this feels like a natural extension of this celebration. So thanks to the Brooklyn Public Library, thanks to Joel for helping put this on, and to the rest of the crew. Without any further ado, we're going to leap right into it. There will be a time to ask questions at the end. Please ask questions. It would be great to convey some of your questions to the interviewees. We're going to start with Sandra. Sandra Shea is a healer in the book. She does many things. And I was lucky enough to sit down a few times, Sandra, with you and talk about the city. So I was hoping we could just go through a little bit of what you do in New York. Could you explain to the assembled what it is that you do here in the city?
Wow. Well, thank you, Craig. It's so good to see you again. Thank you for including me in your wonderful book. So what I do in the city, well, I'm an energy healer and a spiritual teacher, and I do space clearing and blessings. And that's the part that was highlighted in the book. That seems to be the part that people find more interesting. So I go to people's homes or their offices, or I can do it by distance, and I remove any negative energy, low vibration energy, misaligned energy, anything that doesn't feel good. And then I channel in tremendous amounts of divine, blessed healing energy. And it's a whole process. I mean, I've studied for 22 years, this kind of work, this spiritual work. So, but the result of this whole process is that their space just feels wonderful. It feels, it's like a sacred space, and people get along better. They're more productive, they get more work done. If it's a workplace, everybody works better together. And it just feels really, really good, because sometimes people are just aware that something is off, like they're not getting along, or they don't really like what happened in their home before they bought it, and they want to get rid of that energy. And then sometimes people just feel like, there's oftentimes there can be like a room in someone's apartment or in someone's home, and they don't really think that much of it. They just think, oh yeah, we don't go in there. But the truth is, they don't go in there because there's a negative energy in there that doesn't feel good. Even if they don't believe in this kind of work, or they're not aware of it, it's still something in that room doesn't feel good to them. And in New York, with apartments, like losing a whole room in your home, that's a lot of real estate, and that's not good. So when we clear it, they have their room back, and like their whole home gets larger. People have even said after the space clearing, it just feels bigger. When you get rid of the heavy energy, it just feels bigger and lighter.
The real estate industry in New York is totally cutthroat. How did they get in touch with you? Did people just hear about you and start chatting with you, or how did they lure you into the world of New York real estate?
Oh, well, yeah, I do this for realtors as well as private homeowners, and I think it started with my friend Louise, who's a realtor in New York City. She's wonderful, and we met on the spiritual path. And so she started asking me to clear spaces for her. And then she introduced me to her coworkers. And then it's just word of mouth. I don't advertise. So it's just really, it's just word of mouth. And there's, some realtors really believe in this. And, I think it's a great thing for them to use. It helps apartments sell or get rented much more quickly.
Wasn't there an apartment, correct me if I'm wrong, that had been on the market for 7 years, and they brought you in, and I think it sold the next day, didn't it?
So crazy. I was just talking about this apartment yesterday. I swear, because this is my favorite one. Yes, it was a beautiful duplex in Manhattan. And the whole one entire wall on both floors was all windows, and it was gorgeous. And it had been on the market or on and off the market for, I think, 7 years. And realtor found out about me. She brought me in, and she had a showing scheduled for right when the clearing was over. So having been on the market for 7 years, it sold 15 minutes after the clearing. So that's one of my favorite stories about it.
That's the kind of story that spreads quickly around New York City too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if realtors share, I don't know if they share their secrets, I don't know. But yeah, I think the word gets around.
We talked a lot about and how you experience the energy of the city and how you deal with it. Could you give people a sense of just how I know that you clear subway cars sometimes. How do you deal with the energy of the city?
Well, the energy of the city, Manhattan, it's intense. Well, Brooklyn too. And so I protect myself energetically, and I teach my people I work with, students, clients, to do that as well. So I'll protect myself like with an energy, a protective energy. And then also when I go places, I generally do a quick clearing of the place, because otherwise I start to feel bad. Like subway cars, I usually always have to. And I didn't need to do it at your party though. It felt good. But like if I go to the movies, like I don't so much like going to the movies or to a mall or something because of the energies. But in New York, I find myself clearing energy off a lot. I mean, there's so many people here. It's crowded. There's so much going on. It's very intense. And all of these things, they create energy. And a lot of people, obviously, most people probably aren't aware of it, but it still affects them. And so, and then there's some people who are aware of it and really feel it. And so that's why I like to teach people how to protect yourself energetically so you don't feel it as much. But, there was one subway car not that long ago. Maybe it was because I wasn't used to being on the subway because of COVID, but I started like getting really nauseous. And so I cleared it right away, but gosh, it didn't, it helped, but it didn't even fix it 100%. I couldn't believe it. It was crazy.
Well, one of the favorite parts of our conversations was you talking about the sort of layered lives that you could sense in places like the Lower East Side, places where there have been a lot of new immigration, a lot of human history. And I love the fact that the traces of that you could pick up on.
You can feel different parts of it. It's amazing because buildings have their own they have their own energy, but they have their own identity. And so when you go to different buildings that are older, you definitely can sort of connect with what went on there a little bit. And it's intense because there's so much that's happening here, and it's not all pleasant. Most of it's not. If you go to the Lower East Side with all of the immigrants and the tenement houses and those old synagogues, and there's so much that comes up. There's a lot of feeling there. Those people experience so many emotions and, a lot of fear about this new life that they're embarking on in a place they don't know. And I find if I go, and I'm sure other people, if you go to these places, you can connect with that energy. And sometimes it's really interesting and it doesn't feel that bad. It just feels intense and interesting. And then other times you can feel a little, it can get emotional, but I find sometimes energy like that, I can get a little nauseous if the energy is too intense or low vibration. And I'm not the only person that this happens to. Like people who are, they call it empathic, like you feel energy. You might get a little nauseous processing that much energy, because I'm a healer, the energy tends to process through me. And again, I'm not the only person that does this or that's happened.
You're not the only person who gets nauseous in New York either.
Yes. So So, but when I go to some of these places, I can just feel the energy is processing through me to sort of get a little clearer. And that can leave me a little nauseous, but it passes in a few minutes. But yeah, I can feel what happened in like the Lower East Side and other places. It's intense. This is an intense place to live when you're sensitive to energy. And for
Absolutely.
anybody.
And for anybody.
As we New Yorkers know. Yeah.
Well, I really cherish our conversation, Sandra, and thank you so much for taking part. If you have any questions for all the viewers out there for Sandra, please note them down, and we'll come back in a while. So, thank you.
Right.
We're going to move on to Gladys. Strangely enough, Gladys and I didn't meet in person. We've only really known each other over the phone, but I have wonderful memories of speaking to Gladys for hours about her profession. Later in putting together the book, I realized that I really wanted to talk about 911 operators in the city. It just seemed to me to be a really fascinating job. And so I, like a great, researcher, I went on Facebook and I went onto a group for retired 911 operators. And I don't know what quirk of fate led me to Gladys out of all the people who were there, but I was very lucky to meet someone who not only could talk about the job itself, but could talk about one of the most important events in New York's recent history. So Gladys, welcome tonight. Thank you for taking part in this. I'm so pleased to see you. Are you off mute?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Just took a deep breath. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Gladys Mitchell, and I thank you so much, Craig, for inviting me to this event. And I thank you for including me in this wonderful book that has allowed me to meet a lot of people in New York without meeting them face to face. Incredible people, like we all are in New York. I would like to consider us all amazing people. I am retired from the New York City Police Department. I've been retired since 2008. So that makes it about 14 years now that I have been retired. I worked for 25 years prior to. I retired due to having a massive heart attack. I don't know, Craig, if you'd like me to start from the beginning, because I went all the way to the end, kind of like.
What I'd love for you to convey to people is just, I remember us talking about the skills that were necessary to be a good 911 operator in New York City. It seemed to be a really amazing set of skills. Maybe you could let all the viewers know what those skills are.
Well, first and foremost, the most major skill is to listen. That is first and foremost, because you have to be in tune with everyone who calls you. The second skill that you have to have is compassion. You must always put yourself in the place of the person on the other end. You have to have patience, because when people are calling you, they are calling you mostly in the most trying times, most of the times of their life. Something major could be life-threatening. So you just have to be so sympathetic towards people. That's very important.
I know, Gladys, one of the big subjects we talked about, and I know we won't be able to tell the whole story. I hope people will read the whole story in the book. And this is why I consider myself to be so lucky just finding you, is because you talk about being one of the unsung voices of of September the 11th, 2001. I know that it's a really emotional subject for you, but I was wondering if you could give people listening just a sense of the day and what you heard on that day. I know it was one of the defining moments of your life.
Well, September 11, on that day, we always have a ceremony where we're honored we're giving commendations for things that we've done the prior year. And this particular year of September 11, 2001, we were supposed to have our ceremony. And I was attending the ceremony. I was not even supposed to be working that day. So I was supposed to sing the national anthem after all those years. And saying that I didn't want to sing, I decided that year to do the national anthem. So I'm waiting for the ceremony to start, and they asked me to sit and take a call. So I sit and take a call because we always had the big dignitaries come to this ceremony. So they came. They were coming to the ceremony, so they asked me to take a call so I wouldn't look as if I wasn't doing anything if they happened to come in and see me just standing there. So I sat, and it just so happens that I took the very first call that day of someone saying that a plane had hit the World Trade Center tower. Now, we are trained that we are to take everything at face value. We are never supposed to question anything that is said to us. We don't judge anyone. We're there to take the information and get you the help. So when that call came in, I did just that. And then I got another call, someone asking for help, that their spouse was trapped in a building. And that's when I really knew that something really catastrophic had just happened. So after that call, I was then positioned into what we call the radio room. And I was told, do what you do best. And I sat in the World Trade Center zone from the time the first plane hit until about 4:00 that afternoon. I mobilized the entire World Trade Center area that day. The police to and from Ground Zero.
Well, I hope someone will ask a question too, and we'll come back to it. I know that when we discussed it, the details that you remembered, the way that you conducted yourself, just the hand that you reached out to these people with your voice was so compelling for me. I just want you to ask a quick question of what you love about the job, so we can end on a personal note, because I know you have a lot of love for this job too.
Well, first, I just want to say that, this gives me the opportunity because I'm a face of many faces. We consider ourselves forgotten heroes. We consider ourselves the first responder, because we truly are the lifeline to the city. All calls come through us. Everything comes through us first. And we love our job so much. We love the people of New York so much. As the police would give their life for the people of New York, we do the same thing. We may not be out there physically, but everything that happens to the police happens to us. It's just that no one really sees it. My scars are on the inside. but I love my job so much. Even after my massive heart attack, I didn't want to leave my job because I love my job. I get emotional thinking about it because I love my job so much. I love the people of New York so much.
Well, that's a great.
Back there now, I probably would. But I love you all. I love you all.
Well, thank you, Gladys. That's wonderful. I'm hopefully we'll come back in a second near the end, but thank you. I'm moving along now to Elliot Carter, who is gonna tune in. You'll get to see his face in a second. Elliot
Hello.
is now an old friend. We've known each other for years and years. He's just in the other room. Elliot, I got to know while I was volunteering at a place called the Welcome Table on 16th Street and 6th Avenue, one of the great institutions of New York. And Elliot has, like many people in the book, expertise. And it was expertise in an area that I didn't know much about. But Elliot, for years, has collected cans off the street of New York, which is an essential service for this city. And in doing so, he has learned about the city. And I remember countless lunches with Elliot where he would lean back, kind of like how you're sitting now, Elliot, and say, well, the thing about New York is, and deliver some further pearl of wisdom. So I'm eternally grateful. And maybe, Elliot, you can start off by telling some of the viewers just what you need to be prepared for can collecting in the city. What do you need as you head out to collect cans?
Well, as you head out to collect cans, I would say you got to think protection, gloves, comfortable footwear, because if you're really going to do recycling, it's about moving. If you're collecting in the streets, you're not sitting still and waiting for cans. You're out there getting them. So you need bring water, gloves, sturdy bags, You
were telling me about protection from rats too. I mean,
yeah. It's good to have decent gloves on, some good gloves, because sometimes you might go through a garbage can and, rats are a big part of New York too. So, so you have to you have to think safety, because when I was recycling, it could be day or night, midnight or 12 o'clock. It didn't make much of a difference.
What's the best route for you to go through Manhattan? Do you start high in Manhattan and work your way down?
Yeah. Like on the average, I would start from like 34th and 6th and walk straight down to, Tribeca or even further to City Hall or, 'cause especially during warm weather, people do a lot of drinking of liquids, be it water, soda, or beer. So people are always drinking something. So there's like, there's a lot of recycling out there. A lot.
You found money before. What are some of the other crazy things you found?
I found money. I found headsets to PlayStations. I found IDs. One time I was going by the Fashion Institute and I found the professor's wallet in the trash. And I gave it to the security because I know she was wondering what happened to her wallet with her ID.
I know that one time also you found a bunch of cold cuts that ended up in the book too.
Yes, that was very interesting. I was on the Upper East Side, and I was passing by this big butcher shop. And sometimes, if you go through dumpsters, you never know what you might find. And I found a bag full of cold cuts, cheeses and meats, and I mean, perfectly good stuff. Somebody had stashed it and I found it. So it was, finders keepers.
I was always just so impressed with the work ethic that you talked about. I've been walking around New York in the past few days. I can't imagine, walking the amount that you did, carrying with you cans. You mentioned that maybe you could tell us a bit about sleeping in Sarah Roosevelt Park with the cans tied to you, sleeping on the trains with cans.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest. for me, a lot of times it wasn't the highest moment in my life, but it was about survival, you know? It was about survival and taking care of myself, you know? And also when I did that, I did my best not to disturb people and kind of keep out of people's ways, you know? I think there's a place to recycle, but sometimes, you know, people kind of look at recycling sometimes in this kind of like dirty kind of way that, you know, because collecting cans don't necessarily mean that you're homeless, you know. That's a big misperception with some people too, that they associate it with being homeless. But I was homeless, recycling, but I also had a place to live when I recycled. So it was strictly about surviving and working for the money that I got, you know, because I wouldn't ask for nothing, I'd work for it.
Where can you take cans these days back? You were telling me a few places where you can actually take them back to. I mean, that's part of the problem, is getting rid of the cans that you
Yes,
collect.
that's a very big problem. Most places want to put a limit on how many you can take. Actually, there's a state law that says every store that sells have to take at least $12 per person. Now, okay, some stores may not have that capacity, but some of these other stores, some of these high rent, fancy places, they really like to beat people in the head where, oh, we can only give you $2, where there's a state law that says it's $12 per person. So sometimes we had to get in their behinds about that.
You mentioned the time that you spent homeless on the streets of New York. What was it like to get a place of your own? I know that was a big moment recently.
Yes, it was. Actually, I've been in my place now for 8 years, but to be perfectly honest, when I first moved in, I was always waiting for that knock at the door to tell me, oh, pack your stuff, it's time to go. Because my life was like that. It was up and down. I was from one place to the other. And when I moved in there, I felt like that. But 8 years later, I'm like, oh, I'm here to stay until I'm ready to move. So, I'm in a much better place. A much better place, yeah.
Yeah, 8 years is a little longer than recently. I'm glad you're there. I'm also glad that in the course of researching the book, I was not maybe the best journalist. I got very involved in people's lives. And what I love about Elliot is that when my father visited New York City, Elliot made ribs. He made his special recipe of ribs for my dad to give him a real sense of New York City cuisine. So that's truly immersive journalism, I think, right there.
Oh, yes. I got to tell you, that was a great honor. You know, that was a great honor. That and the time I spent with your moms, you know, when we had the turkey, that was like part of the highlight for me of the whole experience, you know.
Well, I think he would say that's a great honor for him, but hey, whatever. It's an honor all the way around. Hopefully there'll be some questions too for Elliot. We'll come back, Elliot, to you in a second. Thanks for letting us understand the world of can collecting. We're kind of going through in order to make sure we've got time for some questions. So the next person I want to introduce is Dan, who's a very big part of the book. We met early on in the process, and I feel like I spent most of my research for this book traveling around in Dan's legendary minivan, learning about the city. And I'm just so incredibly lucky to have found someone who knows so much, who can speak about the city so eloquently, who has a minivan with room for me in it amongst all the legal filings. The great thing too about Dan is that he is a COVID survivor. And for those of you who've read the book, he delivers probably one of the most moving moments in it, talking about the early days of the virus here in New York, which were harrowing. So every time I see his smiling face, I get happy too that you're still around. Dan's a lawyer, so I wanted you to talk a little bit about New York City being a great stage. It's a great stage for so many different types of people, so many professions, but it's a really great stage for lawyers. Why is that? Why is the courtroom in New York so good for performance, would you say?
You know, I think it's the storytelling. I think we're blessed in the city with all of the ethnicities and the races and the backgrounds and really every culture that comes to the table has storytelling, right? As one of the basic components, the oral traditions and the storytelling that comes with it. And we all get to benefit from that. I watch trials that I'm not on when I'm in court, and I see the styles of African-American lawyers, of Irish lawyers, of Puerto Rican lawyers, of Asian American lawyers, and you know, they're all New Yorkers, right? But they bring that history with them. They bring that oral tradition. And really, what is a trial? What is a case? It's you know, it's a story. It's a summation is a story. It's a retelling of an event that happened. I must say, I'm slightly depressed having gone forth here because you know, I can't match up with Sandra, Gladys, or Elliot in terms of my legal practice. I don't have Sandra's energy. I'm not nearly as organized as Gladys. And I'll tell you, in 26 years, I didn't know about this $12 law. I'm going to have to look into this for the cans. So maybe if they could help me and sort of give me some tips, I think I'll probably be a better lawyer. But that's really where the storytelling is. You know, I think why New York is and the courts are so good is because you get to come and you bring that passion and you bring that direction and those stories, and it's the greatest attribute we have in this city. We are such, you know, Mayor Dinkins called it the gorgeous mosaic. It's been called the melting pot, but we really do have it all around us. So that's my thought on that. That's why I feel that way about trials in court.
Well, don't denigrate your legal skills. I mean, you gave me
No.
some of the best legal advice I received in the city, which was, you know, pick a crack
Yeah.
and fall and somehow sue the city. So
Yeah,
I didn't do that, but I
And
appreciated the advice.
the other advice was your modeling career is over, so go face first. Let's maximize the damage. At the time, I had a kid to put through college, so, you know, we needed the money. But no, you're you know, these were some tongue-in-cheek stories. But there are, you know, look, my practice is this, and it's not an advertisement. I don't work for a large firm. I'm not a prosecutor. Those attorneys are great. Those roles are filled. But I grew up in a very blue-collar, working-class neighborhood, right? I'm from Queens. I grew up in Woodside, section of Queens, very Irish Catholic neighborhood in the 70s and early 80s. Could be like any other neighborhood, right? Any other blue-collar boroughs neighborhood. And that's kind of what I am. I see in my family, I see Elliot, I see Gladys, I see Sandra, you know, good, decent people that make up the bulk of the city, working-class people, union workers, nurses, firemen. And that's where I come from, and that's the kind of lawyer I am. Those are the people I represent. I represent average New Yorkers, everyday New Yorkers, working class New Yorkers. I say average, there's nothing average about them. I do personal injury. I've kind of morphed my practice. I do a lot of family court law. I'm a law guardian for children, and I represent mothers and fathers. And I see them, I see my family in them. I see the stresses they go through, and it's amazing. It's very rewarding. It's rewarding to be able to help, you know, in that regard. So,
You're one of the biggest cheerleaders of the city. And I just have always wondered, you know, I think I know the answer to this, but what is your favorite borough? It seems like you're heavily involved in each one.
yeah, I'm on foreign turf here. This is the Brooklyn Library. But Craig, let me just say, I represent Queens. Most of these people were raised out in Brooklyn. You know, so that's my borough. But seriously, I grew up in a great neighborhood that there's dozens of great neighborhoods. My neighborhood, Woodside, in the 70s and 80s and 90s is Bay Ridge. It's Harlem. It's Bayside. It's, you know, it's Throgs Neck. It's Morris Park. It's Downview. All these neighborhoods are very similar. Why is Queens my favorite? Because that's where my family's from. That's where my memories are. But I've been in every borough. I've worked in every borough. I have a connection to every borough. You know, truly, I do love every borough. Staten Island, I don't know, maybe. We'll see. I'll get there someday. I'm not sure. You got to take a boat. I don't know, but we'll get there.
Staten Island is underrepresented here
Yeah.
in the speakers tonight.
It's a beautiful borough. It is. I joke because I love. I kid because I care.
Well, you know, like Gladys had firsthand experience with one huge New York event. I always think that you had experience,
Yeah.
a very, very harrowing experience with the COVID virus out in Long Island Jewish Hospital. For those of you who've read the book, you know this the scene I'll be referring to, but in one very memorable scene for me, Dan directly addresses the virus, sets out a chair and speaks to the chair as if it's COVID. And could you give a sense to the people what you said to it?
You know, it's funny because I do listening to Gladys and listening to Sandra and Elliot. It's really a theme. You know, that was me there as well. What they just said, they work. They plan. Everybody does. Everybody in the room watching us now, we all have that common thread. We are a city of planners and hustlers. Whether it's something big, like organizing the response to 9/11, and Gladys, you know, you should know you're not forgotten. You are remembered, and that is an amazing, heroic thing. Or if it's just getting up early to make sure you get online for the bagels on Saturday morning before the rush comes in. There's planning in the city. That's how we live. We hustle and we plan. And my moment, you know, in that instance, was to try to tackle this. That's hard to go back, but I'll try, real quickly. Because COVID now is leveled out, right? It's really a global problem. It's a national problem. We're all kind of on equal footing. But in those early days, I got the disease around March 23rd, right? 2020. And the biggest part of the disease was the fear and the unknown. And that's what was gripping New Yorkers. And we were way ahead of everybody. You know, I know we like to be number one in everything. This is not something I think we cherish. We were, it was really a New York disease. It was just, so many deaths were here, so many problems, and nobody had answers, right? And so my story was basically, I went into Long Island Jewish Sunday night, March 29th, and I did not see a doctor because they were so taxed until March 31st at 12 o'clock noon, a day and a half later. And I'm doing okay. They're giving me what they have. They were giving me oxygen. I developed pneumonia. This thing took a crack at me. And then finally the doctors come in and I'm like every other New Yorker. I believe in the science. I'm like, what do you got? Give me what you got. Give me a shot. Give me a pill. Let's go. Let's get this thing going. We don't know. We've given you everything we have. So here's the deal. You got 24 hours. We'll come back tomorrow this time. If you start to denigrate, the nurse is outside. Things start to go down. Don't hesitate. And then they were putting people on the ventilators, which was, you know, not a good prospect. And so they left, and I think that kicks in. It kicked in. You know, Elliot's talking about get gloves, right, and get water, be prepared, have a plan, fight. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm angry. I'm angry that I think this is going to happen to me, and I'm all alone. You know, I noticed in the gallery, my daughter Nora is one of the guests tonight, and you know, I love her, and the thought of her not, her and I not seeing each other, or my friends, or my family, or my neighborhood, it was too much to take. But it didn't debilitate me to the point where, you know, I couldn't react. It got me angry. I was angry. I had a lot of anger, and at some point, the voice in I kept saying to myself, I can't believe I'm all alone. I can't believe I'm all alone, until the inner voice stepped in and said, you're not alone, and I wasn't. There were two living things in that room. It was me and the organism inside of me that was trying to take me out. And so the best way that I could cope with it or plan or come up with a game plan was to humanize it and then let's go, you know. And I put this chair out there, and I have had this upbringing. I've been around, you know, bars and pubs in our city, and I'm not a violent man, but I've seen fights and I've seen things escalate, and I've seen every De Niro and Pacino movie, and I know what that swagger is, and I know what that tough talk is, and I can't tell you why. It just kicked in, and I just started like berating this chair and yelling at, like, as if it were, you know, I put the disease in front of me, like, let's go. Who are you? What do you think you're doing? You know, you made a mistake, Jack. Get back on the train. You don't know me. You know, I remember I kept saying, you don't know me. What are you doing here? You think you're going to do this? You're not doing this. At one point, the nurse, who was like strictly my private nurse, she knocked on the door. She's like, is everything okay in there? I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Because I was just getting like into a lather of trying to threaten this thing and trying to let it know, you know, you don't know me. You don't know my family. You don't know my friends. I thought of you because we had just talked. You had to leave the country hastily. And we thought the book was done and the edited version was about to be done. I actually think, Craig, I got the disease just for you to sort of save the process of the book. No, that's not true. But you know, that's what it was, and it was just sort of having that moment of trying to control the situation, which is I think what we all do in this city. Everybody, people who are watching us tonight, Gladys, Sandra, and Elliot, myself, you're a New Yorker. This is what we do. We're going to go down swinging, right? That's what we do. And that's what I was doing there and then, for whatever it was worth. So.
Thanks, Dan.
I
And if
think
you would
that
like to
probably-
hear,
Yeah, I think that probably like yourself and everybody else, the disease got sick of listening to me, so probably time to go.
well, if you haven't read the book, please check it out because you'll get a version of that. But there's a lot more swearing in the book. I'm happy to say.
Yeah, I don't want to do
That's,
that. You know, it's the library, and I actually have a couple of books that are past due. I don't want to bring that up, so I might get in trouble here. So I'll stay quiet.
Well, we've got a bit of time for questions. I'd love it if I've noticed that there's a question in the chat. If you have some questions for my amazing guests, please post them and we'll get through them. I think I'll just read them out. So the first one's for Elliot. Elliot, if you can pop up again on screen, that would be great.
Yes. Okay.
So Bruce asks, maybe it was just from cartoons, but recyclers always carried a stick to stab the trash. Is that what you carried?
Not so much. Maybe to shake up the rats. Like you said, they ain't garbage cans, so you don't want to necessarily stick your hand in a can. It's better to use a stick.
I do remember you talking about self-protection too, and there were different tactics of. There was a lock in a sock. There was a couple things, but I don't remember a stick. No.
No, well, the sticks are for them four-legged creatures. It depends, you know. But yeah, you gotta you in New York City, you do not want to stick your hand in a garbage can, not knowing what's in it. That's
Here.
rule number one. So the stick is necessary, depending on
Well, Dan touched on this a little bit, but maybe I could throw this. Hold on one second. Sorry, there's a new question. I'll keep mine for later. This one's for Gladys. Phoebe asks, apart from listening very deeply and getting help for the people who called in, was there anything else you could do to help them, or did you have to keep the conversations as short as possible? Thank you. You are amazing. Oh, you're muted, Gladys.
Thank you for that compliment. We listen, we take the information in, we get the help that the people need. A lot of times they want to continue talking to us, but you know, the fastest that we can get off the line and complete the call is the fastest we can get them help.
I think also one thing that Gladys mentioned earlier was just the amount of compassion that's needed because of the variety of people phoning in and the heightened state that they're calling in. So I thank you for mentioning that as well, Gladys. I feel like that's such an important part of, and a continuing theme in the book too, just the importance of compassion in New York.
Definitely.
My question for each person, maybe Sandra, you could go first. What would you say are the attributes of a great New Yorker? Oh, you're muted.
Probably good I was muted. I think it's something that came to mind when you were talking to Gladys. And Gladys, I just want to say I love you and thank you for your service. You're such a special soul, really. It's so nice to sort of meet you. So it came to mind when you were speaking to Gladys is that when something really challenging happens here, we honestly really do come together and help each other. And I don't think people who don't live here believe that or know that. But like even when there's blackouts, like do you remember when there was the well, you don't live here, but there was a blackout on the whole Eastern Seaboard years ago. And everybody just got out and helped each other. Like there was no question, like people were directing traffic, people were giving food away, as people started to get energy back, they offered, put stuff outside for people to charge their phones. So I love that about New Yorkers. And I also love, that we find a way to coexist in like, just like some kind of weird science experiment where we're all like in a maze and we're all only given a little room, but we all make it work. I love it here. I live in Brooklyn and I just love Manhattan and I love New York. And honestly, I don't know. I couldn't really imagine anywhere else that I would live. And I want to give a shout out to Park Slope because that's my favorite neighborhood.
Dan, maybe you could pick up on that because I know that one of the other famous New York events that you were involved in was Hurricane Sandy, and you literally had someone sort of pulling you out from the floods of Hurricane Sandy, another New York.
Yeah, I think what Sandra said is right. I mean, it's I seem to be showing up at all these cataclysmic events. I would like maybe just a calm night in, maybe. But what happened during Sandy was at the time we lived in the Rockaways, and of course the Rockaways got hit really bad. But I think what Sandra is saying is true. It's people don't get it. They don't realize what we're all about. We're very resilient, and we are very neighborly here. I've always thought New York is it's a patchwork of small towns and small neighborhoods, with this big metropolis of Manhattan standing to the side of it that everybody goes to work. And then we come back to our homes and we're neighborly. And that's what happened to me that evening. Unfortunately, we had to go out and evacuate. And, I knew the family. I was up the block from us, a few blocks up. I knew them to see them in the neighborhood, but doors were open. Come in. And they brought us in and we weathered that storm. But I think that's what makes New Yorkers great, to answer your question, Craig. We're resilient and we're there for each other. I mean, I really think we are. We are I've lived in Chicago. I've visited around the country. Most other cities are blocked off. They're separated. They're segregated. We really are. We live amongst each other. Our neighborhoods flow into each other. And I think there's a healthy dose of respect. I think it's what makes this city great.
Elliot, how about you? What would you say an attribute of a great New Yorker is?
Endurance and tolerance. Those two, endurance and tolerance. Actually, I tell you, when 9/11 happened, I was living in Charlotte. And the first thing on my mind was getting back to New York to see how I could help. I love New York because all these different people make it what it is. It is like, I love the city. The ups and the downs is, but it's like when things are really tough, people, they put all that nonsense to the side and they come together. That's what I love about our city.
Elliot, there's a question for you in the chat. Joanna asks, says, I admire your desire to work for everything you needed, but if New Yorkers want to help our unhoused neighbors, what do you think is most useful?
Donating to organizations. There are a lot of nonprofits out there that put feet on the ground and, and they serve people, clothes, food, whatever they may need. But just do your research. Because there's people out there that's willing to help.
Thank you. Watana asks, why did each of you share your stories, time, and talent with Craig? Was it the free pizza?
I got a good one for that one.
You go first, Elliot.
Okay. First of all, it was the first time I was ever interviewed by a Canadian. And I wanted to know, how nice are they? Because listen, you got to have some kind of, oh my goodness, to deal with New York. So, I just wanted to see how committed was you. And you were really committed. So thank you.
Anyone else want to touch on that or?
Well,
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that, you know, I felt that when Craig came to me asking me, you know, to share my story, I was so excited because you know, we've never had an opportunity. We don't get that opportunity. We don't get that chance to really let people know what it is that we do. I mean, people know that when they call 911, they hear a voice on the other end that is going to assist them in whatever their situation is. But to put a face, you know, I want people to see that we are human beings also. And we have a heart and we're compassionate and we love the people. That's why we do what we do, because we love the people of New York. So I thank you, Craig.
Well, I thank you. I mean, God, Facebook's good for something, finally.
Thank you for this opportunity, truly, truly.
Oh, thanks, Gladys. And how about you, Dan? I think
You know, when we got together, right as soon as you came over, and I remember I had told you there was a term I was talking about, sort of old New York, the New York of my childhood, not that long ago. But there was this term, it's still around, of being an apple polisher, and I explained to you what that, you know, that meant. Like, you know, take pride. We take pride in our city. We like when people who aren't from our city come, and we can talk about it. And that was a big thing for me. I enjoyed, we had met through a mutual friend, right? We had a mutual friend who kind of introduced us. And what Craig and I did was, with the historic minivan, we used to do neighborhood tours, right? We would go to different neighborhoods, and I would kind of tell them, okay, well, this is Richmond Hill, this is Bayside, this is what the neighborhood was like, this is what it is like now, you know, and just sort of, for me, that's always been a quality that we have as New Yorkers. We're very proud of our city, and we're very proud to kind of show it off and let people know, you know, good people, good-natured people like yourself that come open-minded, that kind of want to see, well, you know, we can all talk about it. And for me, that's what it was. I really enjoyed spending the time. For me, it was just enjoyable. It was leisure, you know, to meet you on a Saturday and go out and drive around and kind of talk about things. And then that's kind of why I invested and got involved in this. That's why I wanted to be a part of this. So I hope, you know, I think it's certainly something you enjoyed. You got to meet my family along the way. We've had a lot
oh my God, I
yeah.
went to your wedding. Jeez, come
Yeah,
on.
we're gonna shout out to my wife Kate. You know, she wants to also say props for the book. She's a big part of it and a big part of me. So this is why you know, why we got involved, and I'm sure that's why most of the people got involved, because they just have a love of the city. You know.
I should say also, I did go to Staten Island. Staten Island is represented in the book. No matter what Dan says, there are some good people out there, some scary people out there too. But
I love Staten Island. It's just a joke.
Can I share something?
absolutely. Sorry.
Besides that, I'm scared of Staten Island. Like I've never been there, whatever.
Bad energy.
I just want to say, so Craig is just the nicest person, and I'm getting like tons and tons of texts right now, and everybody's saying how nice you are. And I want to say it's so interesting that you've also collected, so like everybody you've interviewed here, it seems just so big-hearted and kind, and you're big-hearted and kind. So it's so fascinating to me how you actually found like just really big-hearted, kind, loving people to interview and to include in your book, because that's what you are. So it's fascinating how you kind of attracted and collected to yourself a reflection of yourself, kind of.
God, I hope so. Thank you. I mean, it certainly was lucky for me to be able to speak to such people. And I felt like there was an affinity group, you know, people who think deeply about the city, who feel deeply about the city, who do things, you know, from the hospice nurse to all the other people that I spoke to. Even the elevator repairman, you know, was an elevator repairman who cared deeply for the city and loved it. And so I think that was a self-selecting group. You know, if you find these people who deeply care for New York, they usually care for other things as well. They usually care for other people. And so yeah, there was a lot of luck. But I felt like all the good voices came together in this book.
Well, you attracted it. And thank you.
Well, thanks. If there are any further questions, now is the time to type them out. Thanks, Kate. And if there's anything any of you want to add, or Elliot, if you want to recommend any of the Cubano sandwich places that we ate at over the years of interviewing, now's the time.
Yeah, not so much with the sandwiches. I'm trying to stay on my diet, but you know, I'm working on that one. But I gotta tell you, I have truly been honored to, you know, represent my city, you know, and its people, you know. I truly do love New York, born and raised, you know, and I've lived in every borough, and I'm not afraid to go nowhere. But at the end of the day, I know I can always come home.
Absolutely. That sums it up so well. Well, thank you. We're at 8:02. Maybe Joel will pop back in to say hello to everybody.
Yeah, I just want to echo what I'm seeing in the chat, which is just praise for your personalities and your thoughts and your wisdom and your stories. And Craig, absolutely praise to you for bringing these beautiful voices together tonight at Brooklyn Public Library. This is what we do. And I meant to say something at the beginning. I should have said, this is, you know, some of the most important New Yorkers and folks in any city are the librarians, and the librarians really organize this prize that puts books like this with characters like this up on a bigger stage when we can. And, you know, it truly takes a village, because as soon as our lists are out, we see that authors like Craig are on so many other lists, nominated and winning prizes. So good stories truly just pop. And so praise to you all, praise to the work that you've done, praise to the librarians here at Brooklyn Public Library for choosing this book. And as my colleague has just dropped in the chat, our next conversation is with Chanda Prescott-Weinstein, who is a finalist for the book, for The Disordered Cosmos. That conversation is on June 1st. Please stay in touch with us at BPL Presents. And you'll see that we have another big event this Saturday called the Night of Ideas. It's from 7 p.m. Where the keynote will kick off with Patti Smith until midnight. Craig Taylor is going to be there telling some other stories from the book. We're double dipping with Craig this week. That's how much we're proud of his book and his win. So please RSVP for that at BPL Presents. Stay in touch with us, bklynlibrary.org/BPL Presents. And thanks again to all of you who came out tonight. It's nice to see your faces over there in the windows, and it's nice to have you with us. Thanks again, Craig, Elliot, Sandra, Daniel, Gladys. Couldn't do this without you.
Thank you. And yes, thanks to the librarians. Couldn't be here without them.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.